Welcome to the 5-2 Diet Podcast. All the tips and information you need to lose weight and feel great with intermittent fasting. I'm Kate Harrison from the 52dietbook.com. I've lost 31 pounds, that's 14 kilograms. I've written 4 books about this lifestyle and it's transformed how I eat and how I feel. This podcast features ideas, interviews and encouragement to help you 5-2. Welcome to episode 7 of the 5-2 Diet Podcast and thanks for listening. Today I'm featuring my very first interview and that's with a truly inspiring person whose life has been transformed by 5-2. Here's a taster.
I've lost 4 stone currently and I'm a 10 on the top and a 12 on the bottom, 12, 14 depending on the make. Before that I was definitely a 16 on the top and an 18 on the bottom. It makes me feel good. I mean, I'm probably the weight now that I was when I got married in 1987. I sleep better, generally have more zest for life.
More from Pippa later on. Plus, I'm going to be reading from my own diary from back when I started 5-2 in 2012. And I'll be answering a question from the 5-2 Facebook group about how often you should weigh yourself. Bit of my latest news. Well, I'm recording this in February 2015, just back from holiday in sunny Tenerife in Spain, just off the coast of Africa. Came back to cold Britain. So we went from 23 degrees in the shade to -3 in a 4-hour flight. It was lovely, lots of sunshine and also a nightly sundowner, lots of snacks, huge breakfast and the rest. So my trousers were definitely a bit tighter on the way home. I'm maintaining with 5-2 now, so I normally do about 1 fast a week. But since I got back, I've been doing 2 fasts. I did one on the Monday and one on the Wednesday. And you know what, already I feel so much better. Clothes on the way to feeling like they fit properly again. And just that sense of doing something great for your body. That's pretty relevant to today's topics and question as well, because it's all about how you feel and whether you should weigh yourself, how often you should weigh yourself, and how you might be aware of how your weight is fluctuating. So let's get on with my diary then from October 2012 and let's see how I got on back then. Kate's 5-2 diary, October 2012. Hiccups in the sun. Mood, evangelical, positive, excited. Everyone I talk to seems to know someone who is doing this diet and it seems as appealing to men as to women. I've been chatting to men about why, especially as so many men I know are reluctant to admit to dieting. I wonder what it is about 5-2. Is it the all or nothing nature of fast days? We know how many men like a challenge, the simplicity of it. Or maybe it's just because it really, really works. My news is I've set up a group on Facebook called the 5-2 Diet so we can start sharing some of those experiences. The Facebook group is only the start. I've actually decided, I feel so evangelical about this plan that I've decided to write down all I know about it as an ebook, the book I wish that had been there when I first heard about intermittent fasting. Okay, I'm not a scientist, I admit that, but I did work as a journalist on news, documentaries and food shows at the BBC for 15 years, so I'm pretty used to separating fact from fiction. Plus, I've learned a huge amount about how this diet works in real life by talking to so many other people who are doing it online. The hiccups. Of course, the moment I decide to write about my diet, my weight loss stalls. I lose nothing in the first week of October and feel slightly disheartened, and there's a second hiccup on the horizon. I'm off on holiday to Spain for a week this month, and I know I won't be fasting there, so I decide on a preemptive strike, switching to ADF, that's fasting every alternate day for the week beforehand. Again, I'm surprised at how easy it is. I simply fall into a routine of eating well but unrestrictedly one day and then being extra careful the next. I hardly weigh any foods anymore, but I'm grateful for supermarket fresh soups. I know it's cheap to make your own and sometimes I do, but these pots are very handy on a day when I've got a lot else on. They involve no more preparation than pressing a button on the microwave. Cheap as chips. Despite buying the odd ready-made soup, I am actually saving money through this diet. In fact, I must remember to stop buying as many groceries, as my freezer won't fit all the things that I buy and then don't eat. I'm also cutting back on my snacking on fast days and normal days, because I'm somehow more able to ask myself the question, do I really want this? If I do, it's absolutely fine. But being able to ask that question at all seems to curb my appetite. And on the fast days, I'm eating very little, so my shopping bill's going down, unlike when I was low-carbing years ago and had to buy lots of expensive proteins and ingredients, or when I was doing normal calorie counting and spent a fair amount on special low-cal options, which always used to cost more, and to be frank, tasted pretty disgusting. There are occasional comedy moments too, like the day I took a chip off my boyfriend's plate, then insisted on weighing a similar sized chip and entering on myfitnesspal.com. 1 chip equals 8 calories equals too much, I think. A week off fasting. Right, well, I'm back off my holidays now and I didn't count a single calorie while I was there. Buffet breakfast, buffet dinners and lots of lovely Spanish wine. Buffets are notoriously bad news for dieters. I've read about research that shows the variety makes us go a bit crazy, grabbing a little bit of this and that and the other, which adds to far more calories than we'd eat at a normal meal. But on the holiday, I am more conscious of stopping when I'm hungry, not least because my bikini body is still not as svelte as I'd like it to be. With that in mind, I do something unprecedented. Go to the hotel gym 4 times. It's not easy because the weather's hot and the gym's not air conditioned and the equipment is pretty basic, but I do it. Everyone else in the gym, of course, is very buff and I do feel a bit like the lardy girl in the corner. But maybe before too long, I will be buff as well. So what happened in October? Weight on October the 31st, 150 pounds. Total loss since starting in August, 11 pounds. Days on the diet, 83. BMI 25.9, which means I am within a point of a healthy BMI. Okay, it's only a loss of £2 this month, but I have had a great holiday. Plus, I think I am putting on muscle from the gym. As for my goal, well, till now I haven't really dared have one, but I think I'd like to be a nice round, well, not that round, 10 stone at 63.5 kilos, or maybe 9 stone 13, 63 kilos to be in single figures again at last. Okay, so that is, well, not far off 3 years ago now, and reflecting back, I have actually lost a lot more weight than I dared dream of back then. I was thinking about how I was already getting a sense of the benefits of the lifestyle and of being able to lead my life the way I wanted to. Now I never weigh straight after a holiday. I wait until I feel my fighting weight again so I don't feel discouraged. And that leads me to today's question, which has been getting lots of discussion over on the Facebook group. When does everyone weigh themselves? I weighed myself Monday morning, fasted on Monday, then fasted again. Thursday, weighed myself on Friday and I'd lost 4 pounds. Should I wait until Monday again? That's a question from Kelly. Now, my advice generally is to weigh yourself once a week. And what I used to do was weigh myself the morning after I'd completed 2 fasts during the week. So I used to fast Monday and Wednesday. I'd weigh myself Thursday morning. Maybe you think that's cheating because my tummy would be pretty empty then on the Thursday morning. But for me, doing it then was all about motivation, and really it doesn't matter so long as you're consistent in when you weigh yourself, because your body, if you like, is in the same state and you can see the downward trend. There are so many different things that do affect our weight on a day-to-day basis. Things like our stomach contents, hormones, which in women in particular will influence things like water retention. And obviously the more water you're retaining, the heavier your body will look on the scales. If you've been drinking lots of water, if you've just exercised, that kind of thing. The most important thing, therefore, I really believe, is to be consistent and just weigh yourself same time of day, same day in the week fast-wise, and then keep track. Now, some people do like to weigh themselves every day. I know Linda, who does a lot of advice as an admin in our group, does this. And I've also heard that Krista Varady, who really is behind almost all the work we're doing here, a real fasting pioneer in the States, in her book, which is the Every Other Day Diet, she does recommend weighing every day for compliance, if you like. So that way you are under no illusions about how much you weigh, and she thinks from that you're more likely to stick to it. I think the best way is to work out what encourages you the most, keeps you on track. And remember, it doesn't only have to be about the scales. It can also be about what I call the genes of truth, although it might well be a dress or a pair of trousers or a skirt that fit really well when you're at the weight that you want to be. Just try it on every now and then and see how you're doing progress-wise. You might be surprised, because often the changes in your shape show up first of all in the inch loss or the centimetre loss than they do on the scales. And that reflects back to me on the plane coming home from Tenerife. I knew that my clothes were a bit tighter, and now after just a couple of fasts they're feeling great again. Now, the main part of today's podcast is my interview, and this is with Pippa Cotton from Amersham in England. She joined my group almost exactly 2 years ago, when there were only about 300 of us in the Facebook group. Now there are almost 40,000, and you know what? I reckon there might be a few more after this inspiring interview. Pippa has lost over 4 stone, that's 25 kilograms, and she's now the same weight as on her wedding day back in the 1980s. She's struggled with her weight ever since she was quite a young child, and yet intermittent fasting has made a huge difference. I know you're going to love what she has to say. Welcome, Pippa, and thanks for joining us on the 5-2 Diet podcast. Let's start then. Before you discovered 5-2, what was your state of mind and your health way back then?
That was 2 years ago in January, and I'd had a chest infection, and I'd been as ill as I had ever been, I think, in my life, and thought I was never going to recover. And I had seen the Horizon programme in the August, and it had been in my mind, and I had read your book. And I thought, as soon as I'm well, I'm going to start this, like the next day. And that's what I did. I started the 29th of January, 2 years ago, in the snow and the ice and the cold. And I think by the end of February, I think I'd lost half a stone.
Wow.
And by the end of June, 2 stone. And I had done that by just, the fasting the 2 days and the eating normally and monitoring it a little bit. And also done Julian Michael's workout every other day in May. And
that's pretty hardcore, isn't it, that one?
Hardcore, and it was tough. And at the start I thought, I can't do this, and I would end up in a really sweaty mess, and just thinking, is this going to help me? But after the month, when I'd done it, I had lost, can't quite remember exactly the inches, but I think it was 3 inches from my waist, a couple of inches from my hips, and certainly a couple of inches from my tum. And I just felt amazing, and I was just so pleased with myself. And while I was doing it, I think the temperatures, we had really hot weather in the May. Literally, I'd be doing it I've got a study, and I would be sweating buckets while I did it. And there were some times when I thought I can't do all of it, and worked up through the 3 different levels. And then after that, I did a colour run in June, which is a 5k run around Wembley.
If people haven't seen that, that's just the most amazing thing. Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, I think it was the first time they'd done it in London, and it's a run. It was around the Wembley Stadium. I think they do it in different cities generally, and they pelt you with, I think it's dry paint. So you run through different coloured pods, a purple or blue or red or whatever, and you get splattered in paint, in dry dust paint, I suppose it is. And so you come out multicoloured, and you generally wear a white t-shirt, which they give you. And the atmosphere was incredible. Again, it was a hot day. It was about 20, 21 degrees. And we all set off. People were running, and some were walking in groups and on their own. And it was just a brilliant atmosphere. And I did it, and then came back on the underground to my house.
Going back then to the January where you were feeling really sick, could you have imagined those months ahead actually being able to achieve that?
No, and I'd been and had a well woman check, and they'd said your cholesterol is high. So that was sort of in the early January before I got the chest infection. And so I thought, well, I need to do this. I was quite heavy in weight, and I wasn't very happy, and it was wintry. But somehow just referring to your book and your story really helped me, and I kept a diary, and I kept notes of, and I used my Fitness Pal to monitor everything, and just set myself little goals. So at the start I think when I was recovering from the chest infection and they put me on steroids and things, I decided that I had to start walking, so I was able to walk about half an hour a day, but not very much. I just was determined to do it, and the weather was quite tough because it was very cold, so fasting was tough.
I started doing this in the August, and it really wasn't difficult, but fasting actually seems to contribute to making you feel much colder, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And a bit hungrier.
Yes, definitely. And I managed to, I think I counted that by always having a soup.
Yeah.
And lots to drink, lots of, herbal teas or black coffees or whatever. But I was determined to do it, and I thought I don't want to have any fasting fails. So that's what.
And did you ever fail?
No, not in the early days. I have had a few fails recently, but then I sort of don't beat myself up about it. But at the start, you obviously want it so much for the weight to move that you're determined to. I'm quite single-minded, so when I set myself to do something, I try and make sure that I get there. Because
you were just about 50, weren't you? And just past the age of 50 when you started. Had you always had issues with your weight?
Yes, I have, yeah. I was a premature twin, and I was only 2 pounds at birth. My sister was 3, and my mum, I'm only 5'2", my sister's 5'10".
Right, what a difference.
The difference in weight became apparent at sort of 9 or 10 and then into pre-puberty. And she went on growing and she still has the longest inside leg I know of anyone. It's 33, which is quite
right.
And so 9 and 10, the differences started to I think I went into puberty at about 12. And I remember my mother putting me on a diet. Putting me on Energen rolls and half rations, and I've always been curvy, and because I'm short, obviously it shows more.
As a 5'4", just when I'm standing up extra straight, I know exactly how you feel.
I'm only 5'3", so I think because of that, I've always been. And she was a very good cook, and she used to cook for us from scratch, and it was very healthy and everything. But I think I wasn't that happy in school. When I was a teenager, we moved house, so we moved down to Buckinghamshire from Yorkshire at 14 and went into new school and GCSEs and all of that. So I think that didn't help because I did definitely use food as a comfort at that point. And it's taken me till now to sort of really work out why I've done that and whether I do that with stress. And I don't do that with stress anymore because I've realised that was what I was doing.
Did you find then that when you heard about the Horizon programme, watched it and read some of the case studies in the 5-2 book, that you sensed then that there was something different about it? I
had read about fasting previously and obviously had people that done it. I had done a detox, I think once, which is a Carol Vorderman detox, so I knew I could do it. But I didn't really quite believe it, even when I read your book and even when I started. And I remember going on the forum and saying, I'm scared because I can't believe this is going to work.
It just feels too good to be true, to be able to eat normally and without all that angst that, like you, I've been aware of being curvy and sometimes curvier than other times throughout my life. And the idea that you can get in control of that but also still enjoy food does seem too good to be true.
It does. I think the fast days were not a problem because obviously you know what you're doing. It was the feast days or the normal days that I found quite difficult at the start because you can't quite trust yourself that you can eat more than you think you should because you're so used to restricting yourself in other diets.
Talk us through then what you would eat on both kinds of days. So on a typical fast day, what is your diet for the day?
Right. Well, normally on a fast day, I would either have a poached egg on a grilled portobello mushroom, or I would have a big bowl of soup at lunchtime, homemade soup, and then probably a salad with some form of protein. So chicken, or I favoured prawns because I find that prawns with a large range of different types of salad, and a bit of balsamic vinegar, so a tiny amount of balsamic vinegar would work for me. So I originally at the start I did 3 meals. But then, as time's gone on, I've realised that 2 works better for me. So I usually have something around noon and then something at about 6 o'clock.
Was the hunger a problem for you?
Yeah, some days good days, some days bad days. I think if I was busy, then I didn't notice it quite so much. But even now, I can get a really hungry day where I get a cracking headache. On a normal day, I would just normally have 3 good normal meals, maybe a handful of almonds, 10 almonds as a snack. Yeah, I do like a nice fry-up in the morning. But if I have that, then I tend not to want quite so much at lunch. So I still will probably, even on a normal day, manage with 2 good meals. But I like to have a lot of vegetables and I like to have a good amount of protein.
Have you seen a change in the portion sizes that you eat on a normal day, or any other changes in your eating habits since fasting?
I'm not so interested in eating sweet things, and I eat more slowly and also get fuller quicker. I mean, I don't think I ever do seconds now, even if we're doing a nice roast or something. I find that just one plate of the food with the meat and the veg is enough. So, whereas prior to that, I probably would have eaten quite quickly and thought, I will want another portion. I think maybe my appetite has changed, or my need to eat a certain amount has changed.
And what about snacking?
I don't snack.
Did you before? Were you good? Were you always quite good?
I used to love chocolate. I still love chocolate, but I buy only very good quality dark chocolate. If I want a piece of chocolate, I just have a very small cube.
I feel that snacking is a big issue for all of us because we're so encouraged by marketing, advertising, make sure we never feel hungry. And there's a whole industry around that, and there's an awful lot of profits for companies around that as well, convincing us that if we go for any length of time without any food, we're going to, get low blood sugar and it's all going to go wrong. We won't be able to concentrate. Whereas actually, most of us find once we've been doing this for a while that the opposite is true, that actually our concentration is often enhanced if we're not constantly eating.
Yes, definitely. I find on a fast day that if I've got any things I need to do, I'm much more clear-headed about them, and they don't seem to be problems. They seem quite solvable, which is an odd feeling. It's almost as if everything is going to go your way, which it's an odd. I can't really describe why I feel like that, but you sort of feel anything is possible.
I know exactly what you mean, actually. I think there's a little bit of a chemical energy boost and a little bit of a high as well, which makes biological sense when they talk about the Stone Age man or woman who was forced to follow intermittent fasting because of the varied supply of food, and therefore if there wasn't much food, it would give you this brain energy boost to persuade you to go out and look for more food, or to help you remember, or find an ingenious way of tracking down some food that you hadn't thought of before.
Yes, I'm sure there's something in that.
Back to your weight loss. What has been your total weight loss and things like changes in dress size? Can you remember?
Yes, I've lost 4 stone currently, and I'm a 10 on the top and a 12 on the bottom, 12, 14 depending on the makes. And before that, I was definitely a 16 on the top and an 18 on the bottom.
I mean, that's an amazing result, isn't it? How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel good. I mean, I'm probably the weight now that I was when I got married in 1987. So
right.
I never ever thought, I think when I started this, I thought I'll lose a couple of stone or get to 10 stone or 10 and a half. And I remember getting to 10 and a half and thinking I'll get to 10. And then it's gone down and down. I feel very happy that I've maintained it. And I think I was maintaining in the September off after I started in the February. And barring sort of holidays where it obviously goes up a little bit and then you adjust and do 5-2 to get it, back again, I've stayed the same from then until now.
It's that maintenance and that sustainability that I've found so hugely welcome. Do you feel the same?
I do. And I have so much more energy than I have. And when I think back to before January 2 years ago, when I had this chest infection and I was very wheezy and they were threatening to put me on an inhaler and my cholesterol was high, and I would find it, I remember walking up some steps to our underground station near us and thinking I'm really noticing that I feel so much better now, and I feel so much stronger and better about myself. My cholesterol is low, my blood pressure was luckily low anyway, but I hear stories of other friends who have problems with cholesterol or weight or blood pressure, and I just feel very lucky. I sleep better, just generally have more zest for life, really, which is great. But I feel that I am doing something to contribute to that.
Absolutely. It's that sense of control I felt, because there's a lot of cancer in my family, there's a lot of diabetes, and sometimes you feel really powerless, especially if you can't shift a weight. You feel I'm a logical, rational human being, so why can't I do anything about this? And for me, fasting has completely put me back in control. And yes, it's quite likely that genetically some of that stuff will catch up with me at a future point, but I know that I'm doing everything I can to try and maintain. Sounds like the exercise has become a real, dare I say, addiction?
Well, I do like to do about an hour of something every day.
And that's taking lots of different forms, isn't
yes.
it? So run us through your week.
Well, Monday I would do a long run, so I would do a 5k run. I might do some weights. I've got some hand weights, and I've got a kettlebell, which is an 8k kettlebell. Then the next day I walk with a walking group, which is called Simply Walk in Buckinghamshire. So I'm a trained leader for that, so we would walk for an hour and a half. Then on the Wednesday I would probably have a bit more of a rest day, but I might do another weight session. The Thursday I walk again in the next town, same an hour and a half, and we do hills, so it's quite speedy walking in all weathers. We've been out in all the snowy conditions recently, which has been quite tough walking. And on the Friday I do a Zumba class for an hour, and I usually run there, so that's another 20 minutes of running. And then on the Saturday I do a Zumba class, and then on the Sunday I've persuaded my husband to go walking, so we walk for an hour and a half on the Sunday.
Great. And I was going to ask you about what people's reactions have been around you from family and friends.
They've been pleased, I think. They can't quite believe that it's worked, and they say to me, "Oh, I could never fast. It would never work for me. I like my food too much." My family have been happy. My husband's happy. I'm just happy that I can walk into clothes shops and point at a 10 or a 12 and know that it might fit me, rather than going in and struggling and getting stuck in clothes in the changing room and being too embarrassed to do anything about it. So
that's a horrible feeling, isn't it?
I just have a lot of energy, and I love being outside. So I joined the walking scheme in April last year, and then in the May I did the training course, and in the September I did a first aid course, and I've been leading walks. We also do an hour walk for people who are just new to walking, who might have been recovering from an operation or don't know quite how far they can walk. So we started walks in our area, which is Amersham in Buckinghamshire, in July, and I was the first person to lead one of the walks. And you get
That's great.
Such nice responses from people, mainly retired people, but maybe ladies. As an example, I had a neighbour last week, and she said to me, "Can I come on the walk?" And her husband died a month ago, and it was the first thing that she'd done since her husband had died. And I picked her up, took her down, introduced her. We did a walk for an hour, and she gave me the most enormous hug at the end of the walk and said, "Thank you so much for introducing me to this." And the sun was shining, and for that short time she was able to distract herself from the fact that she'd just lost her husband. And this week she went and brought 2 friends, and it was a delight for me to see her giggling away with her friends and just being happy. And that is what it's all about, really.
Such a wonderful story, and it must feel so satisfying for you in that relatively short period of time to have gone from feeling very vulnerable, I think, and weak from what you're describing with your chest infection, to being able to spread the word and help people through fitness.
Yeah, it's never anything I thought I would do, and it has taught me the power of being outside and being in nature, and just connecting with the earth and seeing the seasons and just getting fresh air, and it's a wonderful thing. And no, I can't imagine thinking when I was really that ill, and I was ill for 3 whole weeks, and I remember it was my birthday, and I was thinking, here am I, I'm ill, and this is awful. I couldn't possibly have believed that I would have done any of these things.
And all of that started, the catalyst being eating 500 calories a day for a couple of days a week.
Yeah, well, and reading your book, obviously.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you, but I think the great thing that has always struck me as well with this is the democracy of what we're all doing, in that you were an early member of our 5-2 Facebook group, which then grew and grew. Do you remember how many people there were when you joined?
Well, I think it was 300, but it might have been less. It may only have been a couple of 100 or so.
I mean, it's now February 2015, and I wouldn't be surprised if by Easter we hit 40,000 people from all around the world. And I think that's been the great thing, that mutual support. That obviously helped you initially.
That helped me initially, and then when I was maintaining, I moved on to the other maintainers' Facebook page, which was also helpful. But at this point, I'm not a member of that anymore, because I sort of feel I don't really need it, although I'm still friendly with some of the people I met along the way.
I think we've all got our stages that we go through, and the groups are there for different stages, but I agree. I mean, I've found it great to have that support, to know that, for example, feeling cold was a symptom, but was something you could do things about, that the headaches definitely passed over time, those kind of things, and just advice on what to eat.
Yes, definitely, and some of the science behind why you felt the way you felt I found very interesting.
There's a lot of research, I think, that's going to be coming out over the next few years that will tell us more and more about how our bodies react, but for now we've got that amazing anecdotal but still really powerful evidence, and that's really come across in what you've said today. Do you think if you were talking to, I mean, I don't know if you have you spread the word? Have you managed to recruit people to the cult of intermittent fasting?
I have one or two, and it seems to have worked for them, although they haven't stuck at it very long, because they obviously had less to lose, like sort of half a stone or so. But some people in my Zumba class have done it and looked amazing. So then they know that they can pick it up and put it down whenever they need to, really. I do mention it wherever possible.
I think a lot of us are a little bit like that, a little bit evangelical. I feel very much now, I'm almost 3 years in, I suppose, that it's a strategy rather than something really tough, in that there are very few rules, there are lots of tips and there are lots of ways of doing it, but that what is nice is that you can leave it for a holiday, as we've said, and then come back to it knowing it's there.
Exactly, and I've done that several times when we've been away for a couple of weeks, and actually come back and only maybe put on 3 pounds, whereas previously I would have put on 5 or 6. And then within a week or so, if you do a couple of fasts, that it will be gone, and it always is.
My last question to you: if you were talking to somebody interested in starting 5-2, somebody perhaps who's listening to the podcast and is a bit unsure, what would you say?
I would say definitely do it. I would definitely say read your book first before you start, or certainly look into how it works, and then definitely join the Facebook group, and then you're away and you have the support there that you need.
Pippa, thanks so much for joining us and talking it through. I'm so inspired by your story, and I think especially hearing about your neighbour and the walking and what a difference that's made. It shows that, as I say, something that starts quite small can go off and branch out into so many different aspects of your life, and it's lovely to hear your voice and your enthusiasm about it. So thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome.
I really enjoyed that interview. Pippa has been so honest. Sounds like it's made such a huge difference to her life. If you want to find out more about the things she mentioned, go to the website. That's the 5-2dietbook.com/podcast7. She's also featured in my latest cookbook, which is the 5-2 Good Food Kitchen. And the book of mine that she so kindly mentions is the original 5-2 diet book, which I've actually just updated for 2015 with some new science and updated tips. That's all for today. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you'll join me next time. For more free tips, recipes and information, visit the 5-2dietbook.com. Follow me on Twitter @the52diet, or download free samples of the books online at Amazon. Join in the lifestyle change everyone is talking about.